exactly did you stop believing in the Jesus of Nigerian churches, and what event triggered it? I mean, you were a pastor, so I didn't say you stop believing in Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm saying stop believing in the
The Jesus of the
Jesus of
Nigerian church.
Nigerian churches.
Okay, I'm gonna first start with a movie that I think everyone should watch. PK.
PK.
If you're watching this and you've not seen that movie, please check it out on Netflix. There is a YouTube version of it. Check it out. PK. My evolution did not start from that movie, but that movie confirmed a lot of the things that I had already going on in my mind, about religion. There are two gods: the God who created man and the God that man created. But the most sold or the most marketed God is the God that man created in his own image. So he has anger issues. He needs money sometimes, and if you don't give him enough money,
you're in trouble.
Then you get into trouble with him. So everything you see in a man, you're gonna find that in the God that man created. So man mirrored himself to create a God that thinks like him, relates like him, wants to be praised like him, and all of that stuff. But nothing is known, or little is known of the one that truly made man, because he made man in his own image, not in the image of man, but in his own, image. And so that forms the basis of my spirituality, right? I've never said, whether in public or in private, that I have no spirituality. I practice a very private spiritual life. Artificial intelligence engines that can answer the questions that have been asked in exam halls. So if I come in with an AI-powered earpiece, for example, in an examination hall, or in a virtual, you know what I mean, or even an eyeglass that is equipped with AI, and it can read the questions on the question sheet and feed me the answers, I will write and pass, right? But come on, think about it. Does that in any way mean that I'm intelligent? No, it doesn't mean. So we need to reset our educational system from a system that asks questions to students who must answer those questions correctly to be seen as intelligent, to a system where the students, or the intelligence of the students, should be tested by the strength of the questions they ask, not the answers they provide. The strength of the questions they ask. So and that's the new shift of intelligence. Intelligence is being redefined, by AI, because now AI can answer questions. So if humans can answer questions, then what's big deal, right? So the intelligent agent or an intelligent human must no longer be the person who supplies the right answers, but the human who can ask the right questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's me again, K, the host of Kaatruths podcast, and today's episode is not something like you've seen before on this show. It's something that is very special to me because of our guests. I know most of you have been expecting this particular episode, and it's finally here. Help me to welcome Dr. Charles Awuzie in the studio. You're welcome, sir.
Oh, thank you so much, Cole. I would prefer if you just say Charles Awuzie. Thank you for that. And by the way, have a beautiful place here.
Thank you. Don't want a big title, but I know you've always liked to be humble and poor.
Thank you.
That is fine. So we're going to make it very quick because of other engagement you have. So I've compiled a list of questions.
Okay.
So because I didn't want to mix up things. So I'm going to be asking you these questions one after another, sir. And the first question I have on my list is something, about social media and other your social life.
Yeah.
I I understand. I know you've amassed a lot of following, especially on Facebook. Die-hard fans, people who wake up every morning just to read your posts and all of that. Of course, you also have trolls, people who do not appreciate the great work you do. And you've been traveling from one place to another, closing deals. I mean, it's just so much, and if it's had witness to some of those engagement. But I want to ask, do you at some point feel okay? Let me just throw away all of these things, disappear from all of the noise, live a quiet life. I mean, and I believe without all of these things, you're already well to do. Do you at some point feel that
Absolutely,
way?
absolutely. Carl, it's not just the trolls on social media, but it's the betrayals we face. There has been times when I would help someone that I met on social media, and then they will turn back at you. They come against you just because you said something they are not comfortable with. So how do you deal with that? The pain, the betrayal, the disappointment. Look, my experience on social media is just beyond the truth. I can deal with strangers who are just trolling, but people you've brought close to you, people you've lent a helping hand to, uh, turning against you because of something, not something you did, but something you said, which somehow triggered them, and then suddenly, they forget all that you did for you. They just forget all that you did for them. That I think has been something that is challenging, and for a couple of times I felt like maybe I should just withdraw. But here's the thing, um, I'm driven by something that is deeper and greater than me. You know, is the truth, the light that I've been exposed to. So just as the military cannot go on extended leave, truth cannot go on sabbatical. So yeah, it doesn't matter how long I take, some time just to rest. I'm coming back to social media. I'm always gonna be on social media. So yeah, but we're gonna do it.
So the pressure is there, but you're going to be there
Yeah, yeah,
at all times.
yeah. You see, courage is not the absence of fear. The most courageous people are also the most fearful people. You know, courage is knowing that this is risky, but I'm gonna do it anyway. What we're doing on social media is crazy, but gosh, I'm gonna do it anyway. That's what we're doing.
This this passion, is it driven by truth, pain, the hunger for revenge, or just to prove that you're better than some of, I mean, you criticize pastors,
Yeah.
politicians, is it just to prove that you're better than them, or is it driven by real passion?
I'll say passion. I'll say passion. You see, if you go on a revenge trip, you're gonna run out of petrol soon. You know, every revenge trip I've witnessed, every revenge adventure I've witnessed, I've seen those on that trip, going out of petrol. We've burnt like this over the years, over a decade, and we are still burning. The reason why we are still burning is because we are not doing this because we want to revenge. There is actually nothing to revenge. Nothing to revenge. Nobody hurt us. I do not think the system in any way hurt me. But my truth is based on my experience, my journey. What I'm doing is just being a mirror for society to say, I've been where you are. I've made those mistakes. I've thought in this way. When it comes to my history and ministry, I've preached some of the things that have been preached today. And for young people who are making some mistakes, I've made those mistakes. So I'm just offering myself as a mirror to say, you see you in me, and I see me in you. And then how do we just fix the blemishes, the dirt on our faces, and let's do it together. So it's not Charles being better or some guy out there being worse. No, 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 no. far from that, from the bottom of my heart, it's more of, I say that often. I say, I'm just a brother who's trying to hold your hand on the journey of life. So it's driven by passion, humanity, and less of other things. Thank you.
Do you think, okay, this question is going to be,
Yeah.
It's a brutal one.
Yeah.
Forgive, this is Kaatruths.
Oh, please just go ahead. Do it.
Do you think you are truly a threat to this corrupt system?
Yeah.
Or you're also secretly benefiting from it?
Yeah.
I mean, the system is corrupt. I can't even think of any system that is not from the church, religion, politics, and all of that. Do you think, because from some of your posts, you're very controversial, you don't hold back, you look at, I mean, I've witnessed it, where you look at very powerful people and you tell them the truth to their faces. So do you honestly think that you're a threat to this very system that you're fighting? And how can you possibly be a threat to a system if you are also benefiting from it?
Look, Carl, I'm not benefiting from the system. I've lost partnerships, I've lost businesses, I've lost people that I love so much. You need to understand that I come from a very conservative background, where relationships meant everything to me. I was a boy preacher, and people loved me because I was a boy preacher. And suddenly, then there is this guy who is just controversial overnight, and everything he's said before, he's kind of, going against it, right? So that's not good, It doesn't sound good to some people. So a lot of people left, a lot of people left. A lot of people do not understand why we have the kind of followership on social media like we do. It's not quite a lot. It's just very little bunch of great minds coming together. But the thing is, we've always had people who form a community around us. From back in my day in varsity, when we started Hunt for Talents Foundation in Okigwe, we've always had these people from when I was pastoring as a student pastor in Okigwe at Power of Faith Commission. These are verifiable facts. We've always had people who would believe in us and come together. Just this evening, you were with me somewhere at my hotel when an old friend came and mentioned that he actually used to pay tithes to me.
And not just him, the mother too.
Everyone used to pay tithes, And so these are people who loved me, and you saw the shock on his face when I was like, look, bro, we need to find a place in Lagos where we could just go chill. He was
Party.
like, no. You know what I mean? It was like Pastor Charles, But here's the thing.
I remember what he said. He said, your kind of party is different from your kind of party.
This kind of party. But here's the truth, Kel. Here's the truth. I love all kinds of parties, because those parties form very great networking sessions and opportunities. So I want to meet people. I climb down from the pulpit so I can be ordinary, so I can engage as an ordinary man with the ordinary man on the streets. And I want to meet them where they are. While I was a pastor, I used to go to strip clubs to share my flyers in Johannesburg. I used to go to strip clubs and share my flyers in Johannesburg.
Inside a strip club.
Inside a strip club. and the DJ will stop the music so I can share my flyers. Revival service flyers. So this thing didn't just start today. Even as a pastor, right? Even as a pastor, I was controversial. I did the kind of things that people considered crazy, But I think it just comes from how your mind functions, I hate to be average. I hate to be normal. I hate to be usual. So it's just how I'm configured. But back to your question, I think in all truth, in all reality, I'm just doing this from a place of passion. From a place of passion.
Okay. A lot of people, especially the Nigerian youth, when we see very wealthy people, will point at them and say, there is no way I can be this wealthy. There's no way anybody can be this wealthy without doing one bad thing, without putting their hand in one, bad thing or the other. We don't believe it is possible. So I want to ask, is it truly possible for someone to be a billionaire, not just a billionaire, to be really wealthy without taking unfair advantage of the system? Is there anything like a righteous, wealthy person?
Well, that's a very strategic question right there, because life is very tricky. As you go about your normal business, the truth is, you are gonna step on some toes. My father was a well-respected leader, a community leader, and he was a teacher. And he led some schools as a teacher, as a head teacher. And every school he was posted to, he was popular. He was famous for transforming that school, building infrastructure, creating more classrooms and all of that stuff. And so one day I asked him, I said, how do you do it? And he looked at me and said, look, my son, if you're going to get things done, you're going to hurt people who don't want to get things done. I was a child then. But that word formed my work ethics. It formed the way I do things. It formed the way I lead organizations. That there is no way we're going to do something right or get something right without stepping on some toes. But here's the thing: don't step on those toes intentionally. Don't go around, or don't set out. I don't set out trying to hurt people, right? I don't do that. But in the course of doing what is right, the law of nature has it that you can't achieve something right without displacing those who are in the wrong. It's not possible. When Jesus wanted to get things right in the temple, he went about flogging people. I strongly believe that they didn't like it either. They probably wanted to fight him back, and all of that stuff. So that's number one. But the other side of it is I practice what is called introspection. So I take an audit of myself on a daily basis. So every day, before I get to sleep, right on my bed, I reflect on every engagement I had with everyone. How I spoke to the driver, how I spoke to the guy who gave me a cup of coffee, how I spoke to the girl who picked the call on the other side. I take, audits of all of that. And I'm quick to apologize. You can ask anyone that I've had a fallout with. I'm always the first. And it doesn't matter whether they are wrong or right. I'm always the first in relationships, whether with exes or with business partners. I'm always the first to say I'm sorry, and that's because I take audits. I take audits. So I don't go around hurting people, but at the same time, I understand that by reason of my calling, my assignment, or my purpose on earth, if we're going to get things right in Africa and for the globe, for humanity, there is no way we're not going to hurt someone's feeling. And okay, I'm just going to answer briefly on going to the money aspect. Building business and creating wealth. Is there a way that a businessman can create wealth,
can truly become wealthy,
without hurting people? Yeah.
Or taking unfair advantage of the system.
I'm going to come to that because these are two different things. First, you focus on creating value, right? When you focus on creating value and pay less attention to competition, because what happens is you see someone setting out to do business and their first concern is competition. Who's selling what I'm selling? Who's doing what I'm doing? And how do I get them out of business? So they do that, take someone else out of business, which literally means take other people out of work, shut down the income of families just to grow their own thing. So that I think is unethical and is wrong, and nobody should get wealthy through that route. But there is a template, which is the value creation template, where you just focus on creating value, build a product, take it to market, test the product. If the market likes it, they're gonna buy it. If they don't like it, you go back to the drawing board and pivot. You know, and once you focus on just your value chain, I tell you, you will be able to create wealth without really hurting other people. On the question of if you can create wealth without taking unfair advantage. So we are in a capitalist economy. Um, Capitalism is unfair. I struggle to publicly share my economic ideologies because to a great extent they may be counter cultural, you know. But there is a shift from how capitalism is practiced currently to a more conscience driven capitalism where we no longer use people to build businesses, but we use business to build people. And that's the kind of business that I support. That's the kind of model, an economic ideology that I tend to lean towards. You know, where we are not destroying lives. You see what happens in places like the oil rich communities where you see oil companies come in to drill oil and leave the place polluted without caring about the lives of the people there, you know. And you see that happen in, you know, other sectors. There is a shift. We now have more executives who are humanizing business operations. And that is something that I have passion for. But someday I'm going to come back to this podcast just to talk about humanizing business decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. a, a few weeks ago, you made a post on your Facebook where you talked about the graduates that are pushing wheelbarrow just to earn a daily living.
Okay.
That post went viral. People were like, you're wrong, that the system is unfair to graduate and blah, 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 blah. But you made it emphatically clear on that post that use yourself as an example of some of the things you built, even as a varsity undergraduate. So then I want to ask, with the educational system of the country, do you think the educational system is a factory where we produce failures? Because I mean, in Nigeria currently, and I believe across Africa, we have graduates who are jobless. They spend 5 years, 6 years, 4 years in the university and then come out and they don't have anything to do. They are not able to create anything. They are not able to start anything. They keep blaming the government and all of that. So what exactly do you think is the problem? Is it the educational system, or do you think it is just the graduate who do not know how to build themselves to something valuable?
Carl, look, behind the educational system is a culture. And that's a culture of success at all costs. That's how you see people who just want to say, I'm a graduate at all costs. So it doesn't matter how I became a graduate. You know, I'm just a graduate. I tell people this, and you can go and verify this. At the time I completed my senior secondary education, to be very honest with you and in all humility, I was ready for life. I didn't need a university. I was ready for life. I engaged with people in varsities, and I could tell that, dude, like Charles, I'm ready for life. You know, I could build things at that point. You know, I was already in tech, creating websites. Back in those days, these were rare skills. You know, and I was ready for life. And being a graduate was just something that my dad wanted me to be a university graduate because he's an educationist.
Mm.
So I went in, applied for biochemistry um, at Abia State University. I was number 6 on merit, number 6 student on merit list, you know. I told my dad, I'm doing this for you, not because I really, my passion has been computers,
Yeah.
you know. So, but today, what we see is a more, you know, drive to just be a graduate. You know, people just want to be graduates, right? But behind that desire is no vision. Is no vision. So it's just a graduate at all costs. So behind the failed or the failing educational system is a culture of success at all costs. Graduate at all costs. Doctor at all costs, engineer at all costs. And that's something we need to speak up against. That you don't need to be any of these to be successful. You don't need to be any of this to be successful. We need an educational system that promotes innovation. An educational system that does not promote cramming, right? Where people memorize texts
Just to pass the
just
exam.
to pass the exam. That's what we're saying. And what is happening is the world is leaving us behind because we now have engines, artificial intelligence engines that can answer the questions that are being asked in exam halls. So if I come in with an AI-powered earpiece, for example, in an examination hall or in a virtual, you know what I mean, or even an eyeglass that is equipped with AI, and it can read the questions on the question sheet and feed me the answers, I will write and pass, right? But come on, think about it. Does that in any way mean that I'm intelligent? No, it doesn't mean. You know, so we need to reset our educational system from a system that asks questions to students who must answer those questions correctly to be seen as intelligent, to a system where the students or the intelligence of the students should be tested by the strength of the questions they ask, not the answers they provide. The strength of the questions they ask. So and that's the new shift of intelligence. You know, intelligence is being redefined, you know, by AI, because now AI can answer questions. So if humans can answer questions, then what's big deal, right? So the intelligent agent or an intelligent human must no longer be the person who supplies the right answers, but the human who can ask the right questions. Kel,
Kai. This one touched me.
come on now.
You know, people will hardly think about it this way.
Yeah.
You know, to understand that asking intelligent questions is a sign of intelligence.
Yeah.
People feel like it's just give the answer. If you're able to find the X in this and that, it means you're intelligent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that wonderful answer.
Awesome.
But moving on, let's go into religious issues. You've been a pastor, and I believe most of the people who are watching, most of the people who are watching us would really want us to, touch on that. So, when exactly did you stop believing in the Jesus of Nigerian churches, and what event triggered it? I mean, you were a pastor, so I didn't say you stop believing in Jesus. I'm saying stop believing in the
Jesus
of Nigerian churches.
Okay, I'm gonna first start with a movie that I think everyone should watch. PK.
PK.
If you're watching this and you've not seen that movie, please check it out on Netflix. There is a YouTube version of it. Check it out. PK. My evolution did not start from that movie, but that movie confirmed a lot of the things that I had already going on in my mind, you know, about religion. There are two gods: the God who created man and the God that man created. But the most sold or the most marketed God is a God that man created in his own image. So he has anger issues. He needs money sometimes, and if you don't give him enough money,
You're in trouble.
then you get into trouble with him. So everything you see in a man, you're gonna find that in the God that man created.
Mm.
So man mirrored himself to create a God that thinks like him, relates like him, wants to be praised like him, and all of that stuff. But nothing is known, or little is known of the one that truly made man, because he made man in his own image, not in the image of man, but in his own, image. And so that forms the basis of my spirituality, right? I've never said, whether in public or in private, that I have no spirituality. I practice a very private spiritual life. Is God no label? Is not Christianity, is not Islam, is not, it doesn't wear any tag. And that is intentional, because organized religion suppress us. I rather would want to be a personality that unites people. But that does not also mean that, I do not probably recognize any higher force. I do, I do. Otherwise, I would be out of a mental, shape, because the rest of the world is going that way. But when I stopped believing in the version of religion practiced in Nigeria was just before I left Nigeria. Just before I left Nigeria. I was in ministry. I was a pastor. I interacted with a lot of pastors. I had access to, the big, small, medium-sized pastors. And we would sit on tables to ask questions, discuss things and people, events and places. And I would go back to myself, to my room, and question the things we talked about. For example, why is it that every time someone asks a question about very sensitive topics like heaven, hell, tithes, and all of those things, why do we as pastors, or why did we, because that was in my past, as pastors, not respond to those questions intellectually, but responded emotionally, or blackmailing them to say, you can't question God, or that is higher than you. They say what you don't know is bigger than you. I hear that all the time. Why do we not have answers to these questions? And I discovered that there is an intellectual gap in religion. There is an intellectual gap where more people just come in to become followers or believers. The word believe is to just accept without questioning. They just become believers. And the first church were not called believers. They were called saints, not believers. Not believers. They were called saints. And I began to question, how did we just get to the point where we can just believe anything without questioning? I studied the scriptures. I saw that the first Christians were thinkers. The end time Christians are believers. So there is a gap of questioning in between these generations. That was when I just told myself, Charles, you have got to fill that gap. So my first assignment was to make believers think and make thinkers believe. That was the first thing I set out to do. Make believers think and make thinkers believe. But I discovered that thinkers had no problem believing. Because if you know something, if you are convinced about something, then you don't need belief. Belief is what you embrace when there is no evidence to support what you should know. So where there is no knowledge, you cling to belief. So I realized that the problem was not thinkers. The problem was with us who call ourselves believers. So I set out to, educate enlighten, teach. I was doing that. Many people saw that on social media. I was teaching doctrines, sound doctrines, and I started getting attacks. The same thing that I was questioning. Why do we, respond to questions with emotional outbursts? Started happening to me. So I just braked. I stopped it there, and I knew that I think, Charles, this is the time to let everyone believe what they want to believe, create value, create solutions, and just live your life. That's what I am, Kel.
Wahala.
Wahala.
You know, it can be very tiring.
Yeah.
It can be very tiring when you know something, just like you said, belief is the absence of knowledge.
Yeah.
You don't have to believe what you know.
Yeah.
I know this thing. I know that you're here. I don't have to believe that you're here. You're here.
Yeah.
So if I must believe, then it means I am not sure.
Yeah.
That is the definition of belief.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to, preach, tell someone, look at this way. I understand you were born into this belief, but can you just take a moment to look at these things this way? And they feel like you are the enemy. I mean, we at Kaatruths, we suffer it.
I get it.
You were there when, they even dragged us to the police.
Yeah.
We suffer it when you're trying to open people's eyes to save victims of manipulation. The same victims you're trying to fight for turn against you.
Yeah.
So it's very, very frustrating, and I understand your point.
I'm just gonna interrupt you briefly. I'm sorry about that. Now, the guys who took you to the police station for asking questions, for standing for what you believe is the truth, when the guys who claim to be prophets, obviously get caught in other staged miracles and all of that, do they also take them to the police? Do they drag them to the police station? That's my problem. That's my problem. So who are they fighting for? Are they fighting for the kingdom? Are they fighting to protect their investments? That's my problem. So these are questions that have lingered in my mind and that begs for answers.
Okay. Now you've talked about this. In fact, this next question, anyway, let me just ask, because I mean it's an obvious, truth. The answer is very clear. But do you think there is still a place, in a modern Africa for miracles, these so-called miracles, churches, miracles, this and all of that? People are hungry for miracle. They pray from morning till night. The other day, a certain politician was saying that, or a certain pastor was saying that we should pray, that is organizing prayer for the revival of the Nigerian economy. We have also been praying for the security of this country from time immemorial till now. We are still praying. All the prophet has made all sorts of declarations, but it seems the insecurity keep getting worse. And so I want to ask, is there still, a place for miracles in the modern Africa, or it just emotional manipulation?
Kel, I'm going to give you an answer you were not expecting. The answer is yes. There is a place for miracles. But that's the miracle of a child in Ohanku village who have probably not been to school, but is now able to use AI to vibe code. That's a miracle. A miracle of a child in Jos who lost his parents, both parents, to the killings in Jos, becoming a leader in the country. That's when the child of a nobody can become somebody without knowing anybody. That's a miracle. And that miracle has a place in modern Nigeria. We need miracles in places and in people that were once seen as nobodies. And through the power of enlightenment, becoming somebodies. Medical cases they were seen as untreatable, or chronic, becoming not death sentence are becoming solvable. That's a miracle. Because I'll tell you something. There was a time that cancer was not considered a disease.
Mm.
In the 1960s, in fact, before 1963, cancer was not considered a disease. It was considered a natural way to die. A natural way to die. So some miracle workers kept pushing the idea that cancer is a disease and it can be solved. And today we see people going free of cancer. I have a family member who dealt with cancer and today he's cancer free. So that's a miracle, and that's a scientific miracle. We want to see more miracles that the thing we used to call obirinajocha, which means a disease that only ends in the grave, can be erased, where people will no longer biela na jocha. In other words, people with that kind of disease will no longer end in the grave, but we live normal lives. That's the miracle we need. So we need this kind of miracles, not the miracle where a child would limp from the wheelchair suddenly. A child that has never walked before, suddenly jumping on from wheelchairs. Or what we saw in South Africa, where I live, where a guy who had been dead for days was rolled into church in a coffin, and he was resurrected miraculously by a prophet. And the moment he was resurrected, he asked for rice.
Right.
I was given a plate of rice. So those are dramas. We don't need dramas again in Africa. We need real scientific miracles, Kel.
There are ones we've seen in Nigeria here where the so-called the so-called corpse, dead body, is sweating inside coffin. It's a very big miracle. It's a sweating corpse.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Now, you were once a pastor. You have ties with almost all of the big pastors, the mega pastors in this country and beyond. Where, were you preaching the same lies you condemn now? Then, and if yes, how are we supposed to know that this new you that preach about tech, transhumanism, and a less religious free world is not just committed to another doctrine that can, change tomorrow?
Yeah. I'm evolving. That's something I need to say. I'm always evolving. The Charles you know today isn't gonna be the same Charles you know tomorrow, and that's a disclaimer I make all the time. I'm evolving. I tell people this: if the way you used to think 10 years ago is the same way you think today, then you've not grown. You've only increased in height and weight. Growth happens when you begin to change your mind about the things you used to believe. It's like the things I used to, believe, I no longer believe in them. Until you come to that point where you can point at 1, 2, 3 things you have unlearned that you are not learned. The next generation of learned people are not just people who studied law, but people who can boldly say that what I used to know is no longer valid. I discovered is no longer valid. When I preached those things that I preached, like I preached tithes. Someone just told us, you were there when he said he used to pay tithe to me. I preached it. But when I discovered that it is not doctrinally correct, I apologize. I was given a land in South Africa as a pastor, and when I left the pulpit, I returned the land back because I said this land was given to me so we can build a church. I'm not building the church. I want to build a tech hub. So you take the land back. That's transparency. That's honesty. And that's what is lacking in today's church. The honesty to say I was wrong. And I tell you something, the greatest influence you can command is not to appear like someone who has never been wrong. You must have the humility to accept that at one point I was wrong. If I'm wrong today, I promise you something. I'll come back here and I'll tell you that, oh, okay, I was wrong. I was wrong. I wrote a book many years ago. Many years ago. A lot of people may not even know the book. Many years ago, I was still a varsity student when I wrote the book. And there were things I taught in the book which were not accurate. I came back and I told people. So we must have a culture that take responsibility for errors. For errors. We all today probably use AI chatbots. You can tell even the AI chatbots are not always accurate.
Yeah.
But they have the humility to tell you they've been programmed by very intelligent people to say, even as an AI, I'm not always accurate. Now, that is what is lacking in religion. How many religious leaders can boldly sit here and tell you that I was wrong? And that's why I respect people like Pastor Adeboye, who came out publicly, at that height. At that height. This man came out publicly and said, what I taught you about tithe was wrong. We need men like that. We need men like that, Kel.
Now, I wouldn't want to ask a question you had answered before, but I just need you to touch on it a little bit about you fought false prophet so much in this country. We've seen where you recovered money from false prophet for widows, victims of the manipulations using your platform. You faced threat. I saw these things. A lot of people witnessed it, where you can no longer move freely because you put your life on the line. You put your business on the line because you want to ensure that false prophets no longer have the audacity to keep manipulating, deceiving, and extorting money from people. But then suddenly you stopped. Suddenly you stopped. You moved on and you stopped paying attention to all of it. You stopped, doing some of those things you used to do. Now, someone like me and those who are watching would want to ask, is it that these people bought you over? Do you now say, okay, carry on, I support you, and whenever you come and give me, pay tithe to me and all of that, of course, you're a papa to most of them. Or do you feel the fight to expose the religious treachery to the victims is a lost battle? Do you think there is no need fighting it? It's a lost battle. Is that why you stopped?
I do not feel it's a lost battle. No, I do not feel it's a lost battle. But my approach changed. I'm still fighting falsehood by my teachings. I discovered that the power of falsehood comes from also teaching, indoctrination. So these guys spent years indoctrinating people on falsehood. Now, the guy who is fighting this falsehood is not teaching the right thing, empowering people. So what happens? The guy who's been taught by the false guy sees the guy who is fighting for the truth, but is not teaching, as either envious. How? Because there is a software in their subconscious mind that has been installed. So what I'm doing right now is to strategically uninstall the wrong information that I believe had been embedded by false teachings. That's why you read my post. They may not attack falsehood or false prophets directly, but they attack the very roots of falsehood, which is deception, lies. I expose people to opportunities. Someone who would have just probably spent more time, sowing seeds to travel overseas and all of that, but suddenly walks into my page and finds out that, oh, okay, you can build technologies. For example, you can build technologies, and because of the technologies you build, you can, if you want to travel, for example, these are for people who just want to travel. If you want to travel, by the reason of what you have built, you can qualify as a technologist for a certain category of visa, which is reserved, for very smart innovators. And almost every country has it. In the US, it's called the Einstein visa.
Mm.
You know, in the UK and other places, I think they call it the global talent visa.
Yes.
So why then should this person go back with that kind of knowledge? Why should they go back to start sowing seeds for just a visitor visa when they can build technologies, equip themselves that when they walk into an embassy, the embassy will respect them? So we equip people with the right information, empower them with the right knowledge, so that what they used to pray for, they will work for it. That's what we're doing. And that's the best way to fight, from where I stand now. But does that mean that exposing, because these are two different dimensions, fighting and exposing the falsehood. That is still very relevant. And that's why I love what Kaatruths is doing. Because they're exposing while also teaching. They're exposing. Now, for some of us, we've done that. We've raised people. Many of them, we can no longer keep doing the same thing when the people we have raised can do the same thing. So we need to then just step back a bit and support them from the background. And there are lots and lots of people who are in the war front fighting. We're in the back, cheering them, supporting. You touch them, you touch us. So we did not just let go of the fight. No. We entered a different phase. And we believe that in the coming years, light is gonna overwhelm darkness. Back in those days, we used to say, truth will always prevail. Truth is prevailing today. Truth is prevailing. Slowly but surely, it is prevailing. I'm talking about people that we recovered their money back for. Many of them. There is a guy, his name is Francis Tochukwu. He's on Facebook. He's a prophet. Cornered him. Took millions, tens of millions of naira from him. The money he had saved to build a house for his mother in the village. The mother didn't have a house. This guy saved that money from his business to build a house for the mom. And the prophet one day gave me a prophecy and said, you must sow this amount of money as seed. And he sowed the seed. They started struggling. When he came to me, he said, then I was still called Pastor Charles. He said, Pastor Charles, you have to do something. I came on social media and I warned the pastor. I said, if you don't return the money, we're going to mobilize people to come to your church on Sunday. And we had the kind of followership that would do anything, mobilize people and all of that stuff. We went back and forth. He paid that guy back that money. He paid him back that money. And he built a house for his mother in the village. When he showed me the picture, I'm going to send that picture to you. When he sent me the picture of the mother's house in the village, I cried that day. I cried. I realized that even if it was just for this cause, that I risked everything to say the truth, I'm satisfied that a woman whose son at one point wanted to build a house for but couldn't because of some falsehood can now present a house to her. That was satisfying. There was another person, Mama Victoria. She gave a prophet money. I think her last card, the last money in her account, cleared the account. A widow, and gave to the prophet. I spoke to the prophet. I said, give her back the money. Good guy, he did. He gave back the woman the money. And she called me, blessing me. She said, your enemies will never triumph over you. And that word that woman spoke in tears today is still working for me. My enemies have never triumphed over me. So those are the kind of blessings we receive when we fight for the truth. So we are still fighting, but in a different phase.
Just before we get into the tech, aspect of this interview,
Yeah.
because I mean that is where I'm mostly interested in.
Same here. Same here.
That thing. But I just want to find out.
Yeah.
You know, people would want to ask you, with just that vulnerable part of you,
Yeah.
what is the saddest moment of your life when you were a pastor? And what exactly would be your advice to the young, vibrant, strong, intelligent young people
Mm.
who are busy opening churches in every street and corners of Africa?
Yeah.
What is your advice to such people?
Kel, I was a very vocal pastor.
Hmm.
I was invited to speak, in different churches, revivals. Um, I was always booked, fully booked. Back in those days, fully booked. The year would be fully booked. But something happened. One day I traveled. It wasn't for ministry.
Hmm.
I was called to speak to a group of business people, young guys, young business leaders. And I faced them in a boardroom. I spoke to them, just like, the usual charismatic way of speaking,
Hmm.
aspirational, but really nothing professional behind it, you know. So the speech was eloquent, but not substantial. So when they began to ask very strategic professional questions, I realized that I couldn't answer those questions.
Hmm.
At that moment, I felt empty. I felt like I needed to go back to study. I felt like I should build. I felt it was time to go back to build and study. That was a turning point for me. I went back to studying. I've always been in tech, so I cleaned up my tech. I started, developing systems again. And my words to young pastors is, I know how fireful, in quotes, that's
Hmm.
vibrant and
Hmm.
charismatic
Hmm.
you are on the pulpit. But if I invite you to a boardroom filled with experts, a boardroom with some of the smartest brains and minds in Africa, would you be able to deliver?
Hmm.
If they ask you very strategic questions, would you be able to represent the manifold wisdom of God and not just the power of God? You see, we need to understand that, beyond the power of God that we preached, there is also the manifold wisdom aspects.
Hmm.
And the world, according to the scriptures, is not held together by the power of God,
Hmm.
but by the manifold wisdom. Now, the problem the church has currently is that everyone want to carry the power, but few are going for the intelligence,
Hmm.
the wisdom that truly governs the universe. So, to that young pastor, that young guy who is listening to your quest for power, anointing, the one that will make slave people and they will follow. We've been there. I've walked into rooms and everyone fell. Nobody could stand. We've been there. So beyond that, would you be able to walk into rooms and everybody will stand in honor of the wisdom
Hmm.
and intelligence that is seen in you? That's my question to them.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. And I believe these young prophets, some of them who are passionate enough for growth, are
Yeah.
going to, listen to this advice and be able to do something more meaningful
Oh
with
yeah.
their lives rather than just jumping and shouting and declaring money, to enter empty pockets of people who do not have a job. But that is by the way. Now we're moving into the real thing, which is tech. And the first question I would want to ask you
Mhm.
is, you've talked so much about the need to re-engineer the mindset of Africans and move away from benighted
Yeah.
beliefs and meaningless TV shows, most
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, is this the reason why you created the Big Brain Naija show, which will be launching soon? And how is this show different from the other shows? And how is it going to benefit, the ordinary Nigerians and Africans at large? Or is it just, something that we are used to, something like we've seen before?
Cool. Thank you for that. That's very important.
Mm,
The best form of criticism is to build an alternative.
mm,
If you're not happy with something, then create something else that you'll be happy with. Big Brain Naija is my rebellion against empty entertainment,
mm,
empty contents. It's so sad when I fly from Europe back to Africa and I watch the contents, on the on-air entertainment content.
mm,
You see AI content, you see content on technology, artificial intelligence, history, geography,
mm.
on science. But every time I fly within Africa, this is on air. And anyone can just go and verify. Go fly from Nigeria to another African country. Then check the category of content, of entertainment content that they have on board. You're going to be shocked. They are just dramas, movies, like your usual regular entertainment movies, but nothing really intellectual, nothing educational. Then go fly outside of Africa. Try take a flight from Europe or the Arabic world or the US and go somewhere else. Then check the category of content they have on board, on air. You'll be shocked. You're going to find a wide range of very intellectually stimulating content. And now that reality does not just stop in the air. It's on ground. You jump on your phone, open TikTok, for example, and you are in Africa. The kind of content you see, and I'm sorry to mention name, this is Kaatruths. I won't mention names.
You can mention them. Kaatruths will encourage names.
But you see Pella, my guy Pella, I love him, but but those are the kind of contents you see. Very entertaining. But at the same time, I just read a post where someone says, with you see the big nyash twerking, all of those kind of things. You see that. Those kind of contents, but less content on intellectual, or intellectually stimulating content. Now, here's the other side. If you make a post that is intellectually stimulating on social media, you come back 5 hours later, you probably have 5 comments. But you make a post on a fight between
the P-Square brothers.
Something that has nothing to do with anyone, or just talk about you and Judy and May. You see the emotions, and sometimes I'll just put that up, just to see. You see the emotions. You see people who have never commented on your post about AI or business.
They appear
from nowhere to judge on a matter that they have no idea about. So Big Brain Naija is a rebellion against the kind of content we consume in Africa. And it's not just like your average TV show. We are rewarding the mind, not the body. We have no issues with the body. Beautiful bodies, great stuff. We want to see beautiful minds. We want to shout, that's great. So we're putting minds on the spotlight and no longer bodies. So we are giving more relevance to thinking and thinkers, and not twerking and twerkers.
Mm,
Thank you.
mm. This show, this Big Brain Naija, is it going to be like Big Brother Naija, where those who make it to the house
Mhm.
are pre-selected? Also, we've heard that there are people who have, advantage of some sort.
Mhm.
Or is it going to be available for just, the ordinary Nigerian? Is it going to be open for everyone, regardless of your background, regardless of your social standing or financial, standing?
We are gonna make it open to everyone. It's open to everyone, but there is a screening.
Hmm.
The first phase of the screening will be done by an artificial intelligence engine, so it's void of any human manipulation. Once the portal is announced, you're going to see what we've done so far. We've built an AI-driven portal. You know, I believe strongly that it's the first in Nigeria or even in Africa that a TV show
Hmm.
will integrate sophisticated technologies to drive transparency in the selection of contestants for a TV show. So the portal will be announced. You've seen that, girl. You've seen the portal.
Hmm.
Um, we believe you're going to receive thousands and thousands of applications. Those applications will first be screened by an artificial intelligence engine. Then the human um, auditors will then audit the applications before the contestants will be invited for an audition. So what we're trying to do is ensure that we have the best quality contestants for a quality show like Big Brain Naija.
Hmm.
So it's open to everyone. Anyone can apply, but there is a screening that will happen.
Thank you so much. So recently, your company, James Bock Group, launched an AI prophet called Udumodu.
Yeah.
So people would want to, it'd be like people who have not heard about it would want to understand what an AI prophet
Yeah.
is like. And then they would also want to ask, this, by the way, this AI, I've used it.
Yeah.
And he has successfully predicted, economic dynamics,
Yeah.
sports, and a whole lot of other things just by putting data together.
Yeah.
So now, if AI replaces our prophet,
Yeah.
our prophetic generals and prophetic commanders, and also replaces our teachers,
Yeah.
and even our lovers, these days there's nothing AI can do.
Yeah.
Does that not, mean that we're going to lose the soul of society?
That's a good question, Kel.
Mm.
That's a good question. But let me just touch on a bit on the Odumodu AI chatbot. It was a pre-prompted chatbot by Gainsbourg Group or Gainsbourg Chibiti.
Mm.
We fed it with data, linked multiple sources of data via APIs to it, so it can give, to a great extent, accurate predictions, and a lot of what we call prophecies
Mm.
are actually predictions. They're data driven. Um, Recently, I predicted that Elon Musk
Yes.
and Trump will fall out. That's data because I have access to Trump's inner circle. I hosted his best friend, Philip Lowe,
Mm.
on my on my platform.
Yes.
You saw that.
Yes.
So I've interacted with his mentor. I've interacted with his best friend. I've interacted with people in his inner circle. So I know how Elon thinks, and because I have that data, I'm able to predict his next moves. So if you have data, you can predict the future. If you have access to data and that is behind you, you can predict the events that are in front of you. This is plain science. It's plain technology. And that's what we did and achieved with Odumodu. Hence, we could predict, economies. We could predict events. During the the Cup of African Nations, right? We predicted,
Yes.
we accurately predicted soccer outcomes.
Yes.
And people are like, how were we able to do that? Some even disbelieved. But that's data. That's the power of data. That's what people are, able to do. They can do anything to have access to your data, to my data, because if they have access to our data, then they can predict our future, your future, my future. So, but back to your question, the kind of society we're going to have if AI takes over, you know, I'm very concerned too, like everyone else. I have very ethical concerns about the future of the world in an AI-driven economy. I have the same fears that we might become a society without a soul. But here's the thing: AI is not independent, at least not yet.
Mm.
You know, AI is an extension of the human mind, at least currently, until we reach what is called the AGI. You know, but currently, AI is an extension of us. So whatever we see in AI is a reflection of who we are. If AI becomes soulless, it's because we are probably soulless.
Because it reflects the human nature.
The human nature is a reflection of how our minds work. So, and I'm very happy that governments are setting up regulatory frameworks to protect people from the wrong use or the wrong deployments of AI. That's a good thing. And I encourage the Nigerian, South African, Ghanaian, and African governments to do the same. It's like the elections which are just coming in 2 years. We've seen some guys who are already using AI to generate images, fake images of political opponents, and making those political opponents to say things that they never say. So we need a regulatory framework that regulates how AI can be used in elections, in campaigning, and our day-to-day life. And for everyone who's using AI, what I say is co-create with AI. Don't let it create for you. If you're writing a letter, don't let AI write all the letter for you. Co-author with it. AI was built to augment human intelligence, not to replace it. So, and that's the same way that I know that AI will not replace prophets, but it will, sharpen through, it will clean up spirituality. Where people will have clearer understanding of what true spirituality is. Because what they used to get before from just prophets, they would be able to get from AI. Then they will have a purer form of spirituality where they won't come into spirituality expecting predictions when they can still get the same prediction from AI. So spirituality will begin to, appear in its purest form as AI progresses.
Okay, so my next question is, you've built quite a lot of tech products.
That's right.
Quite a lot, so much. But I want to ask, are you truly building for, the African market? Are you building for, are you building for the African solutions, or you're simply building tech to sell to the Western world? That is what most people do. They just build, ship it out, even though you said you're building for Africa, but after building, then you sell it and it becomes a thing in other continent instead of Africa.
Yeah. Well, I'm a businessman. I consider myself a technopreneur, which means a technologist who is also an entrepreneur, which means beyond just building solutions, I sell those solutions, and I sell them where there is a market for them. From our scratch berry, which was sold, yes, to an European organization, to the other platforms we've built. But you need to remember, we started building not for our company. We started building systems for other businesses, right? We started building for other businesses where organizations, businesses, companies, governments would approach us and say, we need this system, we need this ERP system or CRM or whatever system. They will approach us, and we'll build those solutions and, maintain them. It's theirs, it's owned by them, right? That was our business model before we started building in-house solutions. So we sell, we build, scale, and exit. But beyond that, we're also building solutions that are now being used or managed by us and used by our users. Like the Gainsborough GPT, the Gainsborough Academy, and others. These are managed in-house, and there are others we've built anonymously, without putting a face to it. We've done all of that, solely driven by our unique business model. So there is that aspect. And for me personally, I believe that technology is a bridge builder. It builds bridges, which means you can maybe you may not be able to speak the same language with the Chinese, but the moment you build tech, which the Chinese is interested in, you've already built a bridge. We've done that, even with Big Brain Naija, the AI console we've built for Big Brain Naija was built in partnership with the Chinese. It was exciting for them. They own the hardware technology. We came with a customized software technology, and that was exciting. It was a good bridge. We built via collaboration. So tech creates bridges, and that's what we're doing, bridging Africa to the rest of the world by building technological solutions.
Brilliant. So I want to ask, a poor African child who do not have money, no access, no advantage whatsoever, how can such a person get into tech and truly become successful with it?
Yeah. Before now, education was very unaccessible, or certain levels of education was unaccessible to certain groups of people. But with the coming of YouTube and other free learning platforms, anyone with data can access training free of charge, can access any kind of information. And then with the coming of artificial intelligence, it even democratizes learning in such a way that anyone with just data, anyone with a smartphone can access, information at any time. So to the poor girl who probably makes excuses like, if I had money, I would have gone to India, or I would have gone to varsity and studied computer science or this or that, there is really no difference between the person who goes to a varsity to study computer science and the person who just goes to YouTube to teach themselves how to code. There is no difference. In fact, most developers are self-taught. And tech is the only industry where nobody is asking you, or where nobody actually pays a lot of attention to your degrees or college, certificates and all of that stuff. They want to ask, what have you built? What have you built, or what are you building? They want to see your GitHub profile, your repos. What have you built? And in the case where you are building nothing and you're accumulating certificates, nobody will give you an opportunity. Nobody. So focus on platforms that are offering free training content. YouTube is free, and there is nothing you want to find or you want to learn that you can't find on YouTube. So to that child, make YouTube your friend. There is Udemy, if you want to take it a bit further. And just because of your show, Kel, if there are evidence to prove that this child truly have trained on YouTube and Udemy, and they want to take it further, we will give them 80% off on Gensburg academic course.
Wow.
80% off.
This is huge, guys.
Yeah.
80% off.
Yeah.
All right. So it's going to be fire in the comment section. It's going to be fire in the comment section. But thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. You've always, done that everywhere you go to.
Thank you.
Try to lift most of our people who are still down there, and we want to say we appreciate it deeply. We appreciate it deeply. Now, moving on to my next question. It's about decentralization. You've promoted decentralization through blockchain, but I want to ask, is there really anything like decentralization on everything, including the blockchain technology is being controlled by the tech giant? Is there truly anything like decentralization on blockchain?
The ideology is real. The technology is available, but the attack is also real. We are not just big tech, but governments are struggling to let go of the power they once controlled. Because decentralization takes power away from the center and distributes it, across peers. Hence we have what we call peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer. So decentralization is real. Now, here's the thing. In the coming years, we are going to see the rise of decentralized autonomous organizations. That was decentralized autonomous organizations. These are organizations that we have no central figure. Decisions will be made by voting. The contracts will be smart contracts, and the organization will be run by smart codes or smart contracts. And while it currently exists in the Web3, communities, DAOs are there. What we are going to see is that mainstream media will pick an interest in them once those DAOs in Web3 communities become successful. And then DAOs will go mainstream. You're going to see entire companies running on smart contracts, completely decentralized. And in finance, we've seen what DeFi, that's decentralized finance, has done. It's literally decentralized or democratized finance. People are now able to raise funds for real world assets. They're able to raise funds to build real estate, and that's through what we call the ROWA tokenization. We've seen that happen. So there is a rising army who are passionate about decentralizing everything. It is just a matter of time. But does that then mean that a time will come when everything, the entire system, will be fully decentralized? I don't think so. Otherwise, there'll be no governments. These governments will also become, decentralized. But yeah, there are governments that are currently pushing for that. I have a friend. He started a country. I once hosted him on my platform. It's called Liberland. They are building a decentralized country. Justin Sun, I think, is the prime minister now, and they've got a couple of other guys. They've got their own passport. It's been recognized by Malawi, and they're still trying to get to other countries to recognize them as an independent sovereign state. But the thing is, they are just a model of what the future would look like or could look like. Do I believe in decentralization? Yes. Do I think it should happen just suddenly? No. I think it should be a process,
A gradual
a
process
gradual process. You know, it's good to disrupt, but don't disrupt everything at the same time.
to avoid chaos.
What about chaos?
Now, the most African youth
Mhm.
who've gotten into tech and other businesses doing amazingly well, building good stuff, but they lack access to real funding. And I've seen most of them who get frustrated because they have beautiful products they've built, they have beautiful stuff they've built, but there's no money to really push it. And Africa, especially Nigeria, is not, for most people, a place where you can easily access funds. If you go to a bank to borrow, they can only borrow you, give you money when they know that you don't need the money. Must prove that you have money for them to give you money.
Got
So
it.
it's a problem. In your position, you've talked about it all, a lot of time on your platform. What advice would you give to such people? How can they access real funding?
Good, very good question, Carl.
Hmm.
Um, first of all, first of all, there are different ways to access funding. Different ways. Time will not help. Otherwise, I would have just gone in depth.
Hmm.
There are angel investors, VCs. Um, in fact, I always say the best way to as a young guy building in Africa, you know, to access funding, you may not really get like cash funding, but you could get supplier or supplier funding where
Hmm.
your hardware supplier decides to give you um hardware on credit or
Hmm.
something. That's
Hmm.
that's that's funding,
Yeah.
you know, or you are trying to build a SaaS, using APIs,
Hmm.
and those APIs would cost a lot of money, and you negotiate it down to say um X discounts, for example, or you're able to negotiate with your third party vendors or service providers to say, look, I'm building this with the funds available to me as an individual. What can you do for me? I've done that several times in the past. And you discover that those guys will be willing to say, okay, you build on top of what you've built, and you'd probably pay nothing, or you could pay just a very little portion of what you're supposed to pay. That's also funded. So, and getting your friends to invest in your business is also funded. So I think the problem is we are sometimes also focusing on the big money,
Hmm. Hmm.
the big money. Or always say start with what you have, negotiate your way into funding. You negotiate your way into it. You don't apply your way into it, because there are people who are just sitting on decks and they just apply to all of these places, Y Combinator, and all of those platforms and organizations, you know, and they are not negotiating. They're not negotiating with the um people around them first, your friends. I always say the best people to start a business with are your friends. If your business is truly good, if you truly believe in it, then get your friends into it.
Hmm.
If you believe you have the character to manage other people's money, then get your friends and family. Because then you know that that's my friend's money. I can play with it. You can play with it. Start with what you have. Build. When you've built, when you've built, and it's time to scale, you attract the right funding.
Hmm.
What I always say is there is money in the capital market. There is money, but we do not have people, funders with the right mix of character, track records, skill sets and um, products to access those funds.
Okay. The trend, Nigerian trend, the so-called Yahoo Yahoo internet fraud.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that is so rampant in this country, and it's ravaging the youth. Most youth want to get into Yahoo Yahoo, quick money, and all of that in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And when you interact with some of these guys, you realize that they're either driven by hunger, the desire for quick money, and all of that. What would be your advice to the government? How can they rechannel the energy of these young people to build a legit tech, business?
Yeah. First, I had to say some of them are driven by hunger. Um, but the truth is, they may be driven by hunger,
Mm,
but along the way, they stop being hungry and they start becoming greedy. So
greed.
yeah, so there is a greed element where they stop being hungry and they become greedy. You know, and my first advice would be to them directly, not to the government, to
Mm,
them, because it's a character problem.
mm.
What legacy would you want to leave? If you were to introduce yourself in the boardroom, who would you say that you are? That's the question I always ask
Mm.
such people. Who would you say that you are? Would you be proud in a room filled with very great professionals to introduce yourself as a Yahoo boy? You wouldn't. Would you be proud to look your child, your future child, in the face and say to them, I built this house in this way? And lastly, how would you feel when someone does to you what you do to others? See, here's the thing. These guys, they take money illegally, fraudulently from people, other people.
Mm.
But when their friends do the same to them, because they do that a lot, where they defraud other people, and then their friends who they use as what they call the Azaman,
Yeah, as a
then
man.
Azaman, right? Then collects the money and without remitting the agreed percentage. What you see is that they go all out to destroy their friends,
Mm.
forgetting that that money was actually stolen from other people.
Excuse me.
So what they do to others, they hate it when it is done to them.
To them.
And that's my question to them. How do you feel? How would you feel if what you do to your victims is done to you?
Just two more questions, very quickly. Just two. One is about Rino Omukri, and the second one is about Nigeria. But let me ask the last one first. How can the Nigerian government? I read a post you made about Benue State, the insecurity in Benue State some days ago, where you advised the state government on how they can successfully, stop the insecurity, the killings in their state. So, what do you think? I need you to use this opportunity to tell us how you think the government can successfully use tech to further secure the country. There is so much insecurity in the country. What would be if you were the Minister of Defense? How will you use tech to further protect lives and properties in this country?
Kel, I was in a boardroom
Mm,
in Johannesburg, South Africa, when I saw the news of what happened in Benue. I had people sitting next to me, and I excused myself
mm.
from that space and went out somewhere, read the news, checked out the videos, and I felt bad. I felt very bad. I came back to the boardroom, carried on like everything was okay, but deep in my heart, I was breaking. I was not breaking just because lives were lost. I was breaking because I know these guys can solve the problems. I know the governments can solve the problem if they have the political will to do so. I was breaking because I knew that this shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't have. These are avoidable, avoidable slaughters, avoidable massacres, avoidable. That's the worst part of it. That's the most painful part of it. Now, after this, I made research, I made calls, I contacted, partners in China and all of that. We brainstormed. I was like, what's the best way? What do we do if we were to solve the Benue killing, for example? And an idea stood out: a panic button system.
Mm.
A panic button system. Where you, because this is what happens during those killings from my research. The guys invade these communities while the community members are in bed.
Mm.
So pick one thing: they operate in secrecy. So they invade the communities when they are sleeping. They don't want to be, noticed
Yeah.
or seen. So they go from household to household, family to family, maiming people. And because there is no panic system that can alert other people that we've just been attacked, so they can spend 2 hours attacking an entire community without any alert. So that's where the panic button system comes in. A system that will be connected to a siren in every home. I have that in my home in Johannesburg. And not just connected to the siren, but connected to a military command. A military command. In a case where the community gets attacked or a household gets attacked, someone in the family will just press the panic button. So the command gets an alert, the community gets an alert to say we've been attacked or we are under attack. The community, then organizes themselves, or vigilante groups can organize themselves while the military responds. Now the question is, how much will that cost? Do you know, Kel, that to procure just one of those panic buttons is about 12,000 naira. Now, if you want to, and you can just buy one for one household. I believe Benue has about 5 million people, which are condensed into about 1.2 million households. If you multiply the 12,600 or thereabouts by the number of households you have in Benue State, the total cost of arming households in Benue State won't exceed 15 to 16 billion naira, which forms just about 5% of the total budget
of the state
last year, 2024. So the case of we don't have the money for that does not really suffice. What makes sense is that the political will is not there. When I made that post, someone from the state government reached out to me, and I honestly thought these guys are serious. I welcomed him. You know me, I usually don't like to mingle with state politics and all of that. I welcomed him, and I'm still waiting. I hope he listens to this podcast and realizes that there could be a time when the people of Benue State, Plateau State, and other states with such menace, with such insecurity, we hold their leaders accountable. It may not be now,
definitely,
but someday they will hold the leaders accountable.
Thank you so much for that. The last question, and this is about our dear Reno. So you seem to know Reno very, very well, and I believe you don't have a personal relationship with him, but because of your, tech skills, you are able to access a lot of information. And we witnessed that during the last general election, where you even dared Reno to use his popular "dear so." Wanted him to just say "dear Charles," and you release some of the things you have. Now, you've used your platform also to expose some of what is referred to, the his manipulative agendas, where he tried to bring one ethnic group against another ethnic group and all of that. And recently, he said that P2B, he made P2B the running mate of Atiku Abubakar in the 2019 general election, where P2B ran as was his running Atiku's running mate. So, what do you think about that, and what exactly do you think is the reason why Reno has refused to let P2B have some peace?
I usually don't want to talk about that human,
Mm.
you know. Um, I, in fact, today, while I was in my hotel, a friend came in and he was really angry that I even mentioned him
His
on my
name.
page.
Mm, mm,
I was like, how can you give your platform to someone you know very well does not deserve it. But I told him something. I said, look, it's not about who deserves to be mentioned on my platform. It is about the truth. The truth. Wars have been fought, Kel, because of lies. More wars have been fought based on false information than on truth. So, if people who have access to the truth do not speak up, then those who run with a lie will set nations on fire.
mm.
I stood up against that human being, not because I have anything personal against him. No, 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 no. In fact, you may not know, there was a time I actually wanted to, invite him to preach for me when I was a pastor. Yeah, he probably would still see the invitation.
Hmm.
So he had this ministry called the Mind of Christ Ministry or something. And I think he's a very good Bible expositor. But here's the thing, and that's my problem with people who interpret the holy books. Sometimes they go from manipulating the holy books to manipulating the public.
Mm.
So they need someone who understands these schemes to stand up to them. So I've been a pastor, he's been a pastor. I understand his strategies. He knows that I understand them. I understand technology. I don't think he does understand technology as much as I do. So he threatened when I exposed some things during the election. He threatened. He said, "I'm going to sue you." It's on his page. He said, "I'm going to sue you, but I will only sue you when Atiku wins
The
the election."
election.
Then he came back to to another podcast and said that he knew that Atiku will not win.
So he was not really planning to sue.
Which means he was saying that when he said, "I will sue you when Atiku wins," he knew he was not going to sue me. So that shows you a person, a human being, who says what he does not mean, but he says things just for the sake of saying them. So we're not in the same class. Whatever I say, I do.
Hmm.
When I said we're going to, host Evolve conferences in Nigeria, we've done the first and second. We did it. Has he been able to come to Nigeria, to bring Nigerian young builders together, in a space that can inspire them or do something? What he does is to divide us. So that's the difference. So I honestly think that with time, we're going to see more of him. With time, we're going to see more of him. And what we're going to see may scare a lot of people. But here's my prediction, and I love to give predictions. Here's my prediction. My prediction is the people he's attacking today, he will do it so well, just like he did against the current president of Nigeria.
Mm.
He will do it so well, not because he believes that these people are bad. Remember, he does not mean what he says, and he does not say what he means. So he's not attacking these people, including the Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi. He is attacking these people to get attention from them. Attention. The day Mr. Peter Obi says, I want to sit with you right now. That's all he needed from the current president. Just to sit with him. Just to sit with him. Girl. Just to sit with him. This is a man who boasts about, meeting with the likes of Boris Johnson, and it's about who he meets. It's about who he meets, who he sits down with. And when you come to a point where you see someone taking glory in the people they meet, check it very well. They have no self-glory. They have nothing in them that speaks of glory. So they want to feel that emptiness.
No real substance.
No real substance. They want to feel that emptiness they feel within by the people they surround themselves with. So my prediction is that the day Peter Obi says, my younger brother, my dear younger brother, let's meet. I tell you, he's going to take a selfie with a smile
and post it.
And his white biabia and post it with a sermon that says, Peter Obi is the best in sliced bread. I went personally to UK to verify that Mr. Peter Obi is not what people think he is. So that's the man you want me to discuss. So I've refused to mention his name solely because I think Kaatruths has more relevance than that name.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of this beautiful session, and it's been fire. It's been fire. If you've watched to this point, I love you, and I want you to share this video. I want you to ensure that it goes viral. There are so much that people can learn from just listening to these questions and answers, the brilliant answers. Thank you so much. I remain your host, and I implore you to subscribe to this channel, and please also watch our previous episode. Have a blessed day ahead.